Recording in progress. Okay, so we've confirmed our quorum. Okay, great. I want to welcome all of our new JPA board members and also thank all of those who continued on in service to the JPA board. You guys' input is incredibly important, and I really want to just express my appreciation for all of your service on the board. The agendas, a streamlined agenda to hit on all the major points for us. We've got action items, about 3 action items that Julia will go through on the consent calendar. We've got 7 informational items. So we probably, should I say it? We might get out of here on time or early. I am jinxing us, but I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. So then that takes us right into any public comment on items not posted on the agenda. This would be the time to go ahead and raise a hand or flag us in chat. Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and go right into our agenda and our action items on the consent calendar.
All right, we have a few action items for consent. The first one I can go over really quickly is approval of the minutes and review of the action items from the June 27th, 2024 joint meetings of the JPA member representatives and the JPA board of directors. The second item is the approval of the Accenture change notice, which includes 8 premise items, reconciliation of fiscal year shifts of previously approved change notices, transition readiness support, and county purchases. And I'll let Holly go into detail on what those items are.
Yeah, so Accenture's change notice 33, as Joy said, that includes 8 premise items and updates to previous premise items. The combined total for the premise portion is 30.1 million. That is of the change allowance within the contract. It will leave a balance of 51.4 million available for future work. This is one of our more significant change notices because it's the first one of the fiscal year. So we reconcile to our state budget and approve funding. And so once the funding's in place, then we incorporate the scope and costs into the contract. To highlight, it includes both CARES and wood tip. Those are 2 of the more significant items. It also includes ABOD, Fiscal Responsibility Act, CalFresh, Notice of Provider Determination, Family Reunification 8135, Transitional Housing Supplement, CalWorks Work Requirements, that's AB 2300, Telephone Consumer Protection Act, text messaging consent, and again, various administrative updates. The other component to this change notice is transition readiness. So these are, as we prepare for the new contract, while being respectful of the appeal process, we are asking for Accenture support to help us with document requests, providing input on incoming vendor plans and approach, supporting general inquiries. The total for this component is $306,983 of the $10 million transition allowance, leaving 9.6 for future work. We also have multiple county purchases. The combined total equates to 5.1 million of the original 35 million. That leaves 14.1 million for future county purchases. The complete list is in the board package, of course, and they range from the kiosks, the fact tablets, customer service center agent count licenses, some local network model adjustments, and various other enhancements, as well as the Fresno Gen AI county purchase with Fresno, which you've been hearing about and we'll hear about later. It also includes some updates to our wide area network specifications, no impact overall to the cost for that change. And then all of the costs included in this change notice are covered through our IAPDU, premise funding, and county funding. The current year costs are also accounted for in the JPA project budget.
The third action item for approval is the Clear Best Work Orders 4 and 5, which include quality assurance, services for 11 premise items and technical and security enhancements.
I'll jump in on this too. Work order 4 is for 1.4 million. That has 11 premise items. Those do align to Accenture's scope of work as well. So this is the complementary QA services. Work order 5 is 1.2 million. That includes the QA services associated with various NIST, Zero Trust, technical and security updates. Those align to Accenture's Amendment 32, which was approved 2 months ago. The work orders are funded through the CalSAWS IAPTU premise funding and also accounted for the JPA budget.
Okay. Holly did a terrific job walking us through. There's a lot baked in here. So just a couple of questions just for clarity. So on the premise items, there's a number of premise items in here. You mentioned with BABOD, some pretty important ones. Are all of those funded individually and separately from our normal monthly change
Yes,
bucket?
that is
They
correct.
are. Okay, and the transition readiness, is that funded separately or is that coming out of the change?
That is the part that's coming out of the CalSAWS IAPTU. That funding was approved a couple of years ago. It's been in the contract. So this is the first.
But it has its own
funding.
its own funding.
But it's part of the CalSAWS IAPTU.
Right, but it has its own funding separate from the monthly. Okay, and then on the county purchases, you mentioned like a balance. So county purchases are funded by the counties themselves. I know we've done a few of our own. What did you mean by the balance?
So as with the premise bucket, the transition bucket, we also have a county purchase bucket that is built into the contract. And as we approve these county purchases and other items, we draw down from that bucket.
So it's a holder and it's still funded by the counties. You're just saying that it has a balance until it's
Contractually.
contractually. Got it. All right, thank you. Any other questions from our board members or state partners on these action items on the consent calendar? Okay, hearing none. Any public comment? Okay, hearing none. Do we have a motion to approve the slate of consent items? I'll move. Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second. This is Chris Woods.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, Kelly Curtis.
Yes.
All right, we already have Greg. Bill Watkins,
Yes.
Francina Martinez,
Yes.
James Zapruto,
Yes.
Melissa Livingston,
Yes.
Veronica, no, you're on now. Welcome.
Yeah.
Kristen Stranger,
I'm going to abstain because I wasn't able to join on today.
all right, Michael Sylvester,
What was the reason why she has to abstain on this?
I couldn't understand what she said.
Kristen, what was the reason for abstaining?
I wasn't able to join on site today
Oh, got it. All right.
at the location.
So she can't vote.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
thank you, Michael.
Yes, for my vote.
Cynthia McCoy Miller,
So I'm off site too, but I wanted to approve. Do I have to abstain if I'm off site?
yes.
If you're away from the location that you shared as your
Oh, no, I'm,
the
Thank
publicly
you.
accessible location.
I approve. Thank you for the clarification.
So the motion passes.
Yes.
So that brings us to our informational items, and I believe we're going to start off with performance trends.
Yes, so we'll have the team, we have a few batters in the box to go over some performance trends. I think we're starting off with Arnold, are you
Yes.
want to start us off? Okay.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and start. So this is we have created a different format for the performance metrics. And so this would be a great opportunity to provide some quick feedback. If you want to see something different, if you like this, and trying to consolidate it. It is a one-page view of the ecosystem, so it includes the CalSAWS core, it includes Benefits Cal. We're looking at how we incorporate the game wheel print as well as OCAD into it as well in future iterations. So if you take a look at the left-hand side, we see these are the CalSAWS SLAs, and the way that we have it formatted, where you see the X's, that's where we missed the SLAs. And then on the right-hand side, we're showing what the actual performance rate was. And then, so just walking through those on the system availability, we really had two incidents here. And the first one was on 5/24, intermittent issues with ECCP, the call center, that had to do with a change that caused a temporary blip in the database responsiveness. We were able to identify the root cause of that, and we implemented a code fix on May 30th. And so that was a 20-minute impact to the call centers where they had to fall back to the out-of-the-box AWS Connect solution during that period. The second issue was on May 30th, and that was really sourced out of our ForgeRock application that serves up the identity services for CalSAWS, for Benefits Cal, imaging, and ECCP. So we had a 40-minute impact on the ForgeRock availability, which basically caused new logins to not occur gracefully. And so what happened was users were able to use the system, but then as they were timing out, which was a 20-minute timeout, they couldn't renew. And so that at that point, they lost connectivity to their core applications. So it was a 40-minute duration outage. And we subsequently had 3 other incidents related to the same root cause on that. And when we get to the risks and issues, I'll provide a little more commentary around that root cause. But that did have an impact on system availability for CalSAWS, Benefits Cal, imaging, contact center. It also had the system response time impact, and that's greater than 10 seconds navigation, screen to screen. And then at the bottom, it had an impact on the ForgeRock availability. So that one is what caused us to miss in 3 areas. The other areas of system performance were solid during the course. This is the March through May timeframe. So batch completion was 100%, training environment availability was 100%, standard report response times 100%, and security, incident, disaster recovery response were all 100% met. Moving over to the right-hand side, we can go ahead and cover the Benefits Cal SLAs. I'll hand over to Rachel.
Thanks, Arnold. So for Benefits Cal for the last quarter, we have met all of our daily transaction volume performance targets. Just a reminder that all of those transactions are largely focused on the response times tied to individuals' experiences on Benefits Cal and how we exchange information with CalSAWS. But for the last quarter, much like past historical trends, we've met 100% of those performance targets.
Thank you. And then Sarah, if you want to talk to the imaging SLAs.
Absolutely. So for the imaging SLAs from Highland for the monthly page views and the database transactions, we were at 100% for March, April, and May. The 99.81% that you see for monthly uptime was just for the month of April. We were at 100 for March and May. But what happened in April is the day after the disaster recovery test, we did have an issue with the database that resulted in system slowness, which actually impacted a logging issue. So users were not able to log in for about 81 minutes. So it's kind of lessons learned from the disaster recovery. We have updated our checklist to ensure that that will not happen again. And then for the login issue, we put a catch in on May 12th to ensure that that doesn't happen again as well.
All right.
Highland side.
Thank you, Sarah. And then the lower right-hand quadrant around the onshore offshore metrics, this is a combination CalSAWS and Benefits Cal view. Rachel, if you'd like to go through Benefits Cal first.
Sure. So we have roughly I think it's just a little under 55% of our staff that's doing development and support that is offshore, and 45% for benefits Cal. It's a consistent trend that we've had, I would say, since the beginning of the engagement.
Thank you, Rachel. And from a CalSAWS perspective, we're still sitting at about 65% onshore and 35% offshore. Contractually, we can move up to 40%. And what we're doing in that final 5% is we just have to make sure there's appropriate segregation of duty and controls to protect the PII and PHI, the personal health information and identifiable information from viewing by the offshore team. So we're implementing additional controls, and that'll allow us to get closer to the 40%. And then the last component is around the CalSAWS cost of rework. And so against the 10% target, what we've seen for 2403 is that we're in the 1 to 2% of cost of rework. And then for the previous releases to 2403 in aggregate, it's a little under 2%, sitting at 1.84 for the onshore, 1.8 for the offshore. So we're seeing consistent quality being produced by both our onshore and our offshore teams. So with Michael, with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, great. As the board members can see, we are trying to refactor this, the performance discussion so that it can be a little more focused, because there's a lot more micro measures underneath each one of these areas. But we wanted to make sure that we're rolling things up so that you can ask questions, so that you guys can look at it and say, is this reflective of what your experience is at your county level in a reasonable way? So we don't want to show 65 measures all at 100% when we know that the whole category might be 100%. So if we're missing anything, or the project's missing anything in any of these areas that you think is not reflective for you, please let Julia know so we can keep adapting this. But this was the project's first shot at looking at across all the performance areas. Obviously, the SLAs will all be on here, whether they're 100 or not, but any area that we miss will also be reflected up here so that we can put some focus on it as well. So I want to encourage any feedback we might have right now to that, or any feedback that could come subsequent to this meeting. So I see Melissa's got a comment, so I wanted to open up and see if any of our board members or state partners had any feedback or comments on this way we're presenting.
Hi, good morning, Michael. This is James Lickerter with San Bernardino.
Thanks, James.
I appreciate the dashboard, and in particular, I appreciate how we map out when we don't achieve the 100%, where the issue was and the resolution. So the initial look at it looks super helpful, but definitely take this back and be able to digest this more. And if there's anything that we would like to see in addition to this, I'll definitely provide feedback. But again, it looks good. This is, I think it's a great dashboard.
Melissa, did you have a comment, or were you putting it in chat?
No, Michael, I just, my comment in the chat was just appreciating the big picture view of the performance. It's very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other feedback or comments from our board members or our state partners, at least initially today? Doesn't preclude us from making them after the meeting. Okay. Hearing none, I have some questions. So
It's on his list right there.
So I like where we're going with this, and I don't have new things to put up there until I kind of comb through this in more detail myself. But a couple of areas that are a little bit theming to me in terms of areas that we've had concerns in the past, but I really want to see what our strategies are. One is around our telephony solution, and we've experienced numerous times now, not consecutively, but numerous times over the period of time we've been up on the call center solution, and having issues between ECCP and the Amazon stack and their CCP behind it, and having to have the counties transition back to the basic solution. I really want to look at that and find, because there's an impact whenever we do that, and how much we can close that gap, whether it's through Amazon having a better CCP that then negates the need for us to have an ECCP would be my ideal hope. But even in the interim, how we can have the CCP be a better handoff point, because once we drop off BCCP to the CCP, I mean, these are acronyms, but basically the enhanced to the basic, there's a loss of functionality. There is an impact on the call centers, and I really want to put a strategy and a focus around that, because this is a business impact that's growing larger and larger for all counties. LA County is a huge impact, and I can know for a fact that the other counties who are coming up more and more on call center solutions are feeling it as well, because a call center is not even almost, it's an immediate impact. It's not something that has even a 10-minute waiting period. It happens in seconds, and so we have to address it quickly. The other area is ForgeRock. I've talked about this several times because it's our underpinnings, it's our connection between everything, all of our access authorizations. I really want to have some strategy around our risk management in that area, and what ForgeRock themselves are doing in terms of addressing it, is having these outages where it impacts multiple platforms is really not acceptable. And we need to have some better mitigation and also some better options to look at in terms of strengthening our solution in that space. And then the last area is imaging. I know we had a disaster recovery script issue that is being resolved and remedied. I was just curious on how often those things are reviewed before we run the tests to see that they're updated appropriately. Is there something preventatively going to be done to make sure that when we run another disaster recovery, we don't have a failure in another area that maybe became outdated or not updated? Is that something that I can get a response from our vendor partner on that one?
On the imaging.
Yeah, on the imaging one in particular.
Yeah, so this is Sarah from Highland,
Thanks, Sarah.
and I believe we do the disaster recovery quarterly. So it is a great big process that we go through in conjunction with a bunch of different teams, not only from the Highland side, but from Accenture and the consortium side as well. So we do review all of those going up to that. There's not really necessarily a script that is changed. It's just some different processes and checklists that we adjusted on our side after this last issue. But it is a big process. It takes quite a bit of time ahead of time. And we are thoroughly going through that. So do want to ensure you that we take those disaster recovery tests seriously. And we're actually glad that we learned from this last one, so that we don't have it happen during an actual disaster.
Thank you. And Julie, does the project look across all of the different platforms on the disaster recovery on a regular basis, even prior to our quarterly tests?
Yes, there's actually dry runs that are occurring with our DR exercises prior to the actual event. So that is in process.
Yeah, we just got to keep pressing in that area because it's in production. And the quarterlies keep us prepared for a real disaster, but I don't want the quarterlies to always have, something that pops up. So.
And it's twice a year. It's
biannual?
It's twice a year, yeah.
Okay, semi-annual. All right. Any other questions or comments from our board members? Oh, you have something else, Arnold?
Yeah, so going back to your question about ECCP,
okay,
and then out of the box, there is actually an initiative, Contact Center 2.0, where we are working with AWS on those new capabilities of the core and the package, so that we can bring them together and potentially even decommission ECCP and just go to the native solution. So that is a work stream that is in process.
Okay, great. Maybe in our future updates where we do put call center on the agenda, we can actually track that because it has been a concern item for a while. So I'm glad to see that we have a track.
And we bring AWS in as well.
Absolutely.
During that information session.
Thank you.
And then so ForgeRock is now owned by Ping Identity. So if you start hearing Ping Identity instead of ForgeRock, there's synonyms with each other.
A lot of M&A activity going on.
So yes, we are also working because there are new versions of Ping Identity that we're waiting for the next major release that has some changes that will address some of the areas that we've seen the instability. So that also is actively being worked through by the team.
Okay, well, this is a good test of this the newly formed combined company, to see how they respond to this challenge, and it'll give us a good idea of what our options are. All right, great. Thanks for that piece. Yes.
Just for a process, we have an open action item, an ongoing action item for
Yes, ma'am.
quarterly, the SLAs, reviews and defects and stuff. Do we want to close that one out and go to this, or we're going to go ahead and go into the deep dive? Next month is the next iteration.
I think we should still keep the deep on a quarterly basis, and this will be our regular monthly. That would be my recommendation. Any concerns from our board members? Okay, then we'll go ahead and move forward with that. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying. Okay, I'll open it back up for questions or comments from our board members or our state partners on the dashboard, what we're measuring, or any of our responses on the impacts and outages. Okay, hearing none. And my chat says one, but that might be the old chat. That was a previous chat. Okay, then I'll ask for public comment here. Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on to our next item. Thank you very much. That's benefits Cal update.
Yes, the long-awaited ROI update. So I'll pass it over to Lynn to give us an update.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, this is Lynn Bridwell. So definitely the headline here is draft letters have been shared. They are currently, well, they were under stakeholder review. They issued them and shared them out with all of the respective stakeholders. Both CDSS and DHCS are following their regular processes and their regular distributions on how this information got shared. The draft letter itself is around 19 pages. They have included 4 attachments. They've got it's a chart that outlines some responsibilities around the breach or security incidents. There's a flow chart, a simple flow chart around the form that's going to be related to the ROI in Benefits Cal. There's also another chart that addresses access and signature requirements across various situations and different populations. And then, of course, looking at the respective release of information forms and when it's appropriate for the one for Benefits Cal versus the other program requirements, because CalWORKS, CalFresh, and Medi-Cal each have some respective rule differences, and those are also outlined in that. So input has been provided for our teams. Our CalSAWs and Benefits Cal teams internally. We are definitely working through that and looking and seeing one, with the direction with the letter and where it's going, and also starting an initial look at what our prior automation was going to be when we held off on that, and start outlining where we might need some changes, and that'll start going through a process. So it's you could term it a gap analysis, so we'll be starting that. It's going to take a little while to work through some of it because there's definitely a bit of a change in direction. But I think you'll find that the draft letter really helps outline some of these responsibilities, and some of these other pieces that the counties were really needing and wanting to develop their processes. And it also helped for the CBO so that they know kind of where and what some of these expectations are and some of the boundaries for themselves. So definitely it's a work in progress. As far as graphically showing this, as far as a series of chain links, we're definitely working it through. They are all very intertwined. There's going to be lots of concurrent activities. But these draft letters should help folks as far as taking a look in your internal business processes, not just our automation support, but now what does this mean for counties on, looking at the CBOs, picking them up and approving them through the Benefits Cal as the CBOs are submitting requests to be approved through the county, those types of things. And then what it means for the worker now that these ROI forms, once the automation happens, will start occurring, then they'll see what is available and the information that the CBOs will have access to, in displaying in Benefits Cal. So definitely we have more to go. We have another meeting later this month, continuing these and starting to look at particular situations. So it's definitely some progress here. And I do want to call out again that CDSS and DHCS, they've been working collaboratively. They've been having many joint working sessions so that the letters are nearly identical, and they've done this on purpose. And the focus of the letter is planning so that we and counties and CBOs will know the direction, so you can start doing your planning now, even before we get the automation instead of after. So that's my update for the Benefits Cal on ROI. And I believe the next item is some metrics.
Yeah,
Let's pause on the ROI first. Lynn,
Okay.
before we get to
So, yeah, so thank you, Lynn. I really appreciate the sharing of information there. So it looks like we're in the blue link right here where the policy
Yes.
was released.
Yes.
So is this broad stakeholder engagement where all stakeholders are giving input, or
Yes.
what's happening during this phase?
Yes. So CalSAS, we've compiled and submitted some input. We know our advocate community, they have rallied around, they have been collecting and may have already submitted the input. And we know the counties also received the drafts on it, and CWDA has been helping with facilitating collecting that input. So definitely it's a broad spectrum of cross input.
Okay, so now that this is out and this input is taking place, is there a way for us to work on estimating some kind of timeline on getting from link 2 to link 3 and kind of moving forward?
I may be able to find a little more out on my next ROI work group meeting that includes the state. It's going to depend on how much input the state partners have received. Because if it requires just some simple changes, they'll be able to turn the letter around and make sure where it's finalized. If there's some other complex questions or some other policy clarifications that may be needed or to be included, that's going to drive a little bit of that timeline. But other than that, from there, we'll start working on some high and refining some high level milestones.
Okay, so the goal is to create an agreement in this blue link on what was issued and any changes that might be agreed upon, and then agree to that, and then move forward in the change management design and next phases?
Correct. With the once we get the posted policy, yeah. Because if there's if there's a major shift on it based off the input, we wouldn't want everybody to do a change management thinking something's going to happen one way and then it comes out that it actually needs to be done a different way. So we've already done something like that when we held off with this. So yes, that's why they're definitely interrelated. And once we get it more finalizes the policy, it definitely sends that change management process into faster speed.
Okay, before we go further into Benefits Cal, then I really want to open up at this point for any comments or questions from our board member state partners on the ROI update. I see a comment in the chat from DHCS that there's been approximately 300 comments already submitted. So they're working through quickly, and it looks like they're targeting trying to be done reviewing all of those in mid-August, so that way they can have a September updated release for us to work off of. We just want to make sure everybody's in the loop on what the level of change, it sounds like, is, Lynn, from a magnitude standpoint.
Yes. Yeah. I think for CalSAS and Benefits Cal, having a clear understanding of the process, one of the items that we're going to be looking at is how and what makes it the most user-friendly for the public with the number of CBOs, and so that somebody can select the CBO that they're looking for. That helps support the customer, helps support the CBOs, and the counties also know, who all these folks are working together and in collaboration with. So that is one of the ideas that we're definitely looking at.
Great. And I want to thank everybody who's been involved in this, the state, the project, our advocates, because getting this right, we talked about this before, is really important because it impacts so many people. And I think we've got a good process, and we just need to keep pushing through and getting, you know, some semblance of when we're going to move to the next stage and everybody being on the same page as we move forward. And I think we'll have a really solid approach that we can build off. And so I'm really proud of the effort that's been done so far. But yeah, this level of commentary and exchange of feedback, and usually if it's a 19-page thing, I would say, oh gosh, but it might have needed to be, to make sure that things were spelled out clearly, so that there aren't misunderstandings. So I do want to give kudos to everyone who's been involved in this, including you, Lynn, for helping shepherd and kind of guide the process on the project side. So I do want to open up for other comments or questions from our board member state partners, because I know this is important to everyone. Okay, any public comment?
Yeah, this is Jennifer from the Advocates Group. Thank you,
Jennifer.
I just wanted, just your comment about it being 19 pages. I do want to acknowledge the state departments, because I think they did do a really good job of trying to cover a lot of the questions that had come up from the counties and the advocates. And so just wanted to thank them for all their work in trying to incorporate everything and make it as clear as possible. Clearly, there's still 300 questions, but I think because this is just such an important feature, it makes sense that everybody really wants to get it right. So thank you, everyone. And I hope that this process can be a model in the future where we could do this earlier in the timelines. We don't have to go back and revisit, because I think it has been really effective to be able to be collaboratively participating in developing this, knowing how intertwined the policy and the automation are for this. I hope it can be a model in the future for how we can collaboratively create really clear guidance that when those situations occur where the policy and the automation are really intertwined. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. And you know, I'm really committed to us continuing to be a learning organization, and we should learn from every experience. So this obviously will be one that will actually fortify us going forward on how we tackle tough policy type of discussions. And I think we do have a lot of things here we can glean from that. So thanks to everybody involved again. Thanks, Lynn. I really appreciate it. Is there any other public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on further into the benefits count. Thank you.
I think I will take it from there. Thank you, Lynn. Good morning, everyone. For the benefits count updates in the next few minutes, I will provide a brief update and give you some perspective on where we stand in Q2 of this year in comparison to the same time of last year. And then we will briefly talk about high-level go-forward plan to move the needle from the adoption standpoint. On the usage metrics side, as you can see, if you do a quarter-to-quarter comparison, in the second quarter of 2023, we received around 446,000 applications. And then this number increased to 642,000 this year. Similarly, documents and images increased from 4.1 million to 7.1 this year from last year's same quarter. Renewables remain pretty consistent across the board, and SAR-7's periodic reports increased from 130,000 from Q2 of last year to 644,000 this year. Another important data point to keep in mind, when we ended the Q2 last year, we only completed first 3 waves of carbon base during our statewide journey. Around 75 to 80% of our total population that we serve today were using benefits count. So keeping that perspective in mind, but if the increased percentage that we see in the numbers here is larger than that in terms of the applications, documents, images, and the periodic reports. But of course, there's work to do, right? And which is going to be the next steps in terms of what we are going to do from to move the needle from the adoption standpoint. And our JPA board may recall that in coordination with our collaboration model stakeholders, we conducted 2 communication and marketing campaigns. One in September 2022, another one was last year in 2023, before we get to statewide. And those campaigns were primarily intending to increase the adoption for the customers not using benefits card at all, using in-person or paper channels, or the features were relatively less used, or just they were targeted. And some of these targeted segmented outreach had a really positive turnaround. And we through the click-through rates, we benchmarked them against the industry standards. For example, last year's campaign ended up over 250,000 actions from the customers by September of last year. But of course, we have to repeat the positive actions we have done going forward. And two things to keep in mind. Of course, in terms of the usage, right, we need to research a couple of things. One, for the customers who are currently using the benefits card right now, we need to understand what channel they are using and what the usage is. We need to monitor that. Second piece is for the customers who are not using benefits card today, we want to do a research or do a survey to understand the underlying reasons why they are not using it. And for that, there are a couple of ways to do that, right? One, a really important channel is working with the counties, since they are really close to the customers, to do a survey to understand the reasons. Second is working again with the counties for the customers sitting in the lobby who prefers to sit in the lobby to understand the obstacles and the underlying reasons. Third piece is if county-specific demographics or the usage patterns are like playing a factor to it, we can do a research and survey to identify those. And then if there is a disaster happening in a certain part of the state, if we have to do a targeted outreach to encourage customers for disaster coverage. And maybe another perspective to keep in mind is if they have to do some kind of refreshment training for the counties to have direct communications and marketing efforts together. And last but not least, anything that we have done earlier and worked out really well from a marketing campaign standpoint, we can do that, repeat that on a recurring basis. If something worked out, why not repeat it, right? So these are the kind of high level go forward plan in order to move the needle for the adoption.
Okay.
So this was the last slide, I think, for the benefits section. Yeah.
All right, I know that we asked, I particularly asked for us to start delving into our strategy on increasing usage on Benefits Cal, and I want to get more particular about what that means other than just more general campaign updates. I'm glad you acknowledged that when we look at the data, it is a bit skewed on the fact that we were loading in new counties. So really getting a good benchmark of when we've had all the counties aboard, some level of buffer on saying that's probably our baseline, and then looking at our growth to give us a better projection of when are we plateauing out? Because from a county perspective, LA feels like we already plateaued, and so I want to see how's the project looking on this, because this is a great platform, and yes, we're not going to get everybody to use it, but we really want to know what the universe looks like and how we're trenching towards really getting mass usage of the platform and all these benefits we're putting in functionality. How much of our participant base are being able to benefit from that, because it helps us in other areas in terms of call center offload. I know they're very linked together, and so I'm really sensitive about us trying to really drive these numbers up. And so, yeah, I'd love to have a little bit more dialogue on what specific things we're doing and how we're measuring if they're successful, and integrated efforts with the counties on how we can also participate in supporting this in a more kind of collective fashion with the project.
Michael, to your point too about the call center volume, I think we may want to take a look at this holistically too, because while we may see access channel for Benefits Cal go up, does that mean that our call volume is reducing? Does that mean our foot traffic is reducing coming into the office? So we may want to look at it broadly in terms of all of the access channels and where people are actually looking to seek services.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because it's even more nuanced than that, because, and I think we might have to slice in and be more targeted in what we look at, because as we market, we sometimes create phone calls.
Right.
So we can create somewhat of a front load that could, actually have some increase to the call centers, but then have some offload. And I really want us to be able to see where we're getting benefit from that. And it might be that a campaign goes out, we see some pickup in the call volume, but some of our strategies will need to be to mitigate that. And then where do we see, and how long does it take for us to see some of the benefits of individuals that are now actually using it, but they took some help to get established. So we might need to also look at the technical help desks call volumes as well when we start to look at that.
Yeah, and then we also have the nuance of with the EBT cards coming in, the call volume. There's a lot of things that are going to be happening in the call too that could see the data. Yeah. Just being cognizant.
One thing in regards to that is again with the EBT cards.
Yeah.
And then, supporting EBT through the entire life cycle of the benefit. And so again, as we've looked at benefits, Cal has been very front end focused, of course, as CalSaw's interface. I also support the EBT app, EBT Edge, which we are also pushing for self-service. But again, as I look from the customer perspective, to have two apps to be able to manage my benefits is challenging. So, some future enhancement thoughts going forward that we might be able to explore.
Yeah, that's a great point, my friend. And one of the things I don't want us to take our eye off is when we look at what we're trying to do campaign wise, I don't want us to be over enthusiastic and simplistic about like what the result of that is. Are we sharing the kind of information that when somebody receives it, they'll be able to do something besides call us? See, that's the thing that I want to really be cognizant of, is that we have done campaigns, all of us have done them. We've done them at the county level and turned around and went, well, that didn't exactly result the way we wanted. We wanted to inform them enough to actually take action, but instead what we did was cause them to ask a lot of questions and end up calling and end up in line with people who have real significant caseload needs because they didn't quite understand what we were marketing or how to go about doing it. So I want us to think about the campaigns themselves and how precise they are at taking people and making sure that they can do the things that need to be done to get themselves set up. And then also that's the ease of setup. It kind of all goes together, right?
And Michael, I pull on that thread too. There's, the campaign aspect, but there's also as we're introducing new features. And I'm thinking about, we've been monitoring social media a lot lately about the dashboard that we put in for renewals and for the periodic reports. And if you start to look at some of the chatter that's on social media, it has actually driven some people to go have conversations with the counties now that they've seen what's there. So I think it's something that's not just an outreach and enrollment, but it's also tied into, as we're introducing features, having that monitoring going forward too. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate the holistic look at that. Any other comments from our board members or our state partners on this? Yes, Greg.
Yeah, I wanted to just ask, and it probably goes to the future surveys, but it really kind of stands out how popular the application part is, but the renewals have not increased almost at all. Do we have any idea, analysis of why that is?
So medical renewals users are usually use the system just once a year, and they don't have the muscle memory to go to the system always because it's like due to the pandemic, right? They did not have to use the system as frequent because they were due to the waivers, they were getting extended. So we do not have the what should I say, the user channel adoption from the medical renewal standpoint. In terms of the CalWorks and CalFresh renewals, around 73 to 75% of the renewals go through the benefits cloud right now. But we also see, uptick certain seasonal timeframes of the year, not necessarily throughout the year, like around early year or right following the holiday period, we see an uptick, but it was not necessarily from the customer's behavior standpoint. There's some kind of a seasonality that we observed. Not necessarily decline per se, but some kind of a consistency across the board.
So one of the things that we had talked about also, when we talked about sources, was trying to understand, there's like QR codes on the bottom of renewal packets to see, are people scanning them and are they going directly to Benefits Cal to execute? Today, we don't have a linkage to know where they're coming from the renewal. If they're searching, what their pattern and their habits are in their history. So that's something that we have said that we want to really target, is getting that renewal up, because getting them in the door is fine, but these are long-term relationships with people that have ongoing cases, and it's that stickiness that once you have a case created that we need to have, and that's a piece that the team is really focusing on, is the research around renewals, ongoing needs like supportive services, reporting changes in life circumstances. That's really going to be a big push going forward.
So at least in hearing, like you were saying, muscle memory, people, they start off by applying through Benefits Cal, but maybe they don't ever really get the message that the renewal is coming until they get the packet. And then they just think, oh, here's a paper packet, I have to do it by.
Correct.
Exactly. We observed last year, during last year's campaign, that was a great question, actually. Some of the customers were receiving a message or notification, hey, your renewal is due on benefits, but they were never reading it. So we were targeting those customer segments to send them a notification email, hey, you have a message, your renewal is due, why don't you use benefits instead of the paper channel? So we observed that behavior too, so pretty consistent one, so thank you.
Other questions or comments from our board members or state partners?
We have a question from Veronica.
Hello there. I wrote it on the chat, but I'll ask. So I guess for me, I'd like to know, do we have a breakdown of this quarterly report by county? And the reason that I'm asking is, some of us have done huge efforts in getting clients to access Benefits Cal. So this is actually a good reflection to know if we're being successful or not. So, yeah, just the question, if there's a breakdown of this report that can be shared with individual counties.
Yeah, Veronica, I think there is. I think owner was kind of alluding to that, where we need to be coordinating with the counties, but I see Rachel nodding her head.
There is. We can summarize it. The counties all have access also to click to get access to this information so they can see, slice and dice the data. It's available. We can maybe, owner, we need to do a refresh of what's available to the counties, but it's something that we can actually publish that's out there. But there is a self-serve option that counties can get access to this information in real time.
Yeah.
Okay, and you said it's through Click, right?
Yes, it's through Click.
Any other comments from our board members or state partners?
Yeah, Michael, this is James Leclerc with San Bernardino. Just real quick, just really appreciate this conversation and value that we're going to be looking at. The impact this has on the foot traffic and the impact to the customer service centers. And the other area that I wanted to touch on briefly is churn. I know here in San Bernardino, we do a lot of promoting of self-service and Benefits Cal and text message enrollment. I think this is another critical area within Benefits Cal that it really does help mitigate churn for folks that are enrolled in Benefits Cal. They're able to self-serve, able to submit star 7s, renewals, just another really critical area to help support our customers and not get discontinued for procedural type reasons. So again, just another, I think, data point if we're able to look in and see, again, customers that enrolled in Benefits Cal and when they have star 7 or a renewal that is due, what is their chance of being discontinued compared to folks that are not enrolled in a Benefits Cal. So again, just a comment that I think it would be another helpful data point to take a look at to really help promote registration independent Benefits Cal.
Excellent input. Thank you.
This is
Any
Kristen.
other? Oh, Kristen, thank you.
Hey, Michael. Hey, I had a question about I know we continue to do user-centered designed sessions where we have customer engagement to kind of give us feedback on not only some of the newer functionality, but also tending to the foundation of Benefits Cal as a whole. So I'm curious if anybody happens to know off the top of their head some of that feedback. What types of things are customers maybe still struggling with, or any functionality that they've expressed would be super helpful, either new or fine tuning some of the existing functionality. Thanks.
Yeah, so I can speak to that. So a couple of feedback we were hearing, we have been conducting a lot of customer research as part of our UCD efforts, and it's a great question, by the way. So one of the, if I have to give you top 3, number 1 was customers wanted to restructure the data, what they see on the customer dashboard to find the right information to complete their sometimes renewals, if they need additional information about their cases. So restructuring the customer dashboard is one thing. Second thing was about the renewals and the star 7 trackers. They had some specific asks about to see the progress of their renewals. When I submit it, where does it stand right now? Is it in progress? Is it ever read? Is it ever received? So they want to have transparency on the life cycle of those. And the number 3 was around the EBT card. The EBT card balances the usage if they submit a replacement card, where it stands, kind of transparency about the EBT card, because they really want to have how much money is remaining in their card balances if they submit a replacement, so where does it stand? So these are the top 3 things we have been hearing, and we are working on making some improvements in those areas based on the customer feedback we received.
All right, thank you, Owner. Any other comments or questions from our board member state partners? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to move to public comment. There's a comment in the chat from Jennifer Tracy. Curious to hear about CBO assisters and eligibility workers, about what customers are telling them and maybe why they're not necessarily using benefits Cal for renewals. I think you started to speak to that, but maybe also just how user-centered design is continuing to evolve and incorporate feedback from others, including EWs themselves. I'd be interested just to see what your guys' vision is for this going forward, because I think user-centered design is a moniker that applies to a lot of different ways to approach feedback, and maybe you guys could speak to that.
Yeah, so I'll say a couple of things. Historically, we've done interviews when it is particular to a customer because we want to maintain privacy. We conduct focus groups, and this is something as part of our research strategy, is to conduct focus groups with community-based organizations that are at particular cohort levels as well, because we realize that while some CBOs serve some populations, there are different needs that individuals may have, whether their English is a second language. It might be individuals that potentially have had a disability. So we will be conducting focus groups like we have in the past based off of cohorts to solicit that feedback. And that's where we get qualitative information. We will get the same also from reaching out. We've had focus groups with county workers as well. And recognizing, again, and owner and I talked about this before, making sure that we're speaking to counties that have like populations that are served, like business processes, so that we're getting that feedback about how we're getting an understanding of the challenges that they are doing. Because we can hear things from customers. There may be a different perspective that the counties have. There may be a different perspective that we get from the CBOs. That gets aggregated from a focus group, interviews. And I'll say in the past, we haven't done surveys with counties because, thinking back to ISS, the counties have said that they are surveyed out. And we tend to get a lot more richness from actually having the conversations in the focus groups and getting that particular feedback. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is people are pretty vocal on social media, and not just on Twitter, but there are Facebook groups that counties actually have where they exchange information, and we monitor some of those county Facebook groups to then mine the themes that are coming out of the social media to see what we can do to aggregate that as well. So it's a combination of interviews, focus groups, having social media mining, and then we do look at usage patterns of the actual people in the system to see what we can get out of the web analytics for usage.
Okay, so previously when we were talking about strategies and certain marketing things, I want to make sure that there's a good engagement in front of that, like a good outreach in front of that. So I want to make sure that it's not what we did before, but also something that's very targeted, new, and also just to kind of mitigate impact to county, because I'm one of them who, we get surveyed out. Yes, we do. But there's other ways we can actually capture county input. We do have our RMs, and we do have ways in which we can actually pull together individuals who might be able to provide feedback at a user level without sending out a survey broadly to individuals who maybe don't have time to complete it. So maybe we use a channel that still can pull that in, because I don't want to have the county's voice be absent in this because of the survey approach in the past. Maybe we can use something that can be facilitated more and managed more by the county so that their input can still be included.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Okay. I'm going to open up now to public comment, and there are some things in the chat that if anybody wants to speak up, they can now.
Hi, this is Jennifer again. I was curious about the data here. We'd asked in the past about if it's possible to separate out the applications or renewals or documents that come in through Get CalFresh versus what comes in directly from the customer through Benefits Cal. And I'm asking because I think what we'd like to see is a trend of people moving towards Benefits Cal on their own as Get CalFresh starts to sunset some of their functionality and as Benefits Cal adds new functionality. And we can't see that when the information is lumped together. So I'm hoping we can look at this from the customer perspective as well of, are they feeling motivated to adopt Benefits Cal and move away from Get CalFresh, or even not feel like they need to go to a CBO to get help? If we could separate out customers doing this through themselves, through a CBO, or through Get CalFresh, so that we could actually have some additional understanding of what we're looking at with this data.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Jen. I think what what Rachel was alluding to before was us getting more granular in the channels that they're coming in through, so that we can have more targeted response. And I think you just pulled out, great example of that. And if we are successfully moving folks from CalFresh. Yeah.
Thank you. I had one more question as well. A few months back, someone had asked about the Get CalFresh sunset and how the project is preparing to support customers with making sure that whatever functionality is being sunsetted incrementally through Get CalFresh, that service in some way is being reflected in Benefits Cal, so that customers overall are not losing access to service. And we'd asked if there's any way the project plans to measure the success of their efforts to show, if so many people are using Get CalFresh for the SAR7 renewal, are we seeing a comparable number of people moving over to Benefits Cal for their SAR7? And I think at the time there was a comment saying, let's take a look at that. I'm wondering if we can bring that back and find a time as we're getting closer to that sunsetting, starting to pick up a pace a little bit, to make sure that, again, that we're not leaving folks in the lurch without services or comparable services that they're used to using.
Yeah.
Okay.
Taking notes.
Yep. So we'll take that in. I do think that we're at the point where we're really trying to reassess a lot of the things that we've done, and also where we're going. So this is a perfect time for us to take a look at those kind of things. Any other public comment? Okay, thanks for a robust discussion. Does that conclude Benefits Cal?
Yes.
And then we move to release and policy updates.
All right, Lisa, you're up.
All right, hello, everyone. So I'm going to focus on three kind of immediate priorities that we have, and then I'll come back to the big release in a couple of weeks. So we have in front of us the annual rate changes for our foster care can get AAP populations, the California Necessities Index rate increases. So when we met last, the county's consortium project, we had just received the draft numbers. And in looking through that, one of the immediate concerns was that for a subset of the population, the FFAs, there is a rate decrease. So because of that, we really needed to explore options to accelerate the timeframe for implementing this change this year. The final numbers just came out last week. We had already started working on the based on the draft numbers. We received an update from CDSS saying that they were almost 99% not going to change. So we have gone ahead and we explored a number of options to accelerate this increase. It was previously planned to run in early August. However, we need to run it before main payroll is run for the county. So foster care main payroll, we have a little bit of variability there. We have 55 counties that run that on the 1st of the month. It's paid in arrears. We have 2 counties that run around the 5th of the month. And we have LA DCFS that runs around the 8th of the month. So our key metric there was we need to get this through our development and testing cycles and into the system before the 1st of the month. Those counties that run on the 1st of the month, there are very important checks that go out so that some of the foster youth can pay rent. So where we're at as of today, we are in our assembly testing for this batch run. We have had to accelerate and crash the schedule a little bit. We've brought in a number of testers, including more eccentric consortium and QA testers as we, in the next 2 weeks, move through the system test cycle. We'll run that batch, review the results, review the resulting lists. So we are still on track at this point and targeted to run Saturday the 27th, which will be obviously before those 55 counties need to run main payroll. So
So Lisa, just to clarify, we have everything we need from the state.
yeah, we got
This is
final numbers
in-house.
just
Okay.
the other day. We did get confirmation last week that it was just going through signature, so nothing was going to change. So we had started working on the draft.
Great, thank you.
To that point, we do want to do a retrospective on this. You know, any year a rate could go up or down. We do want to go back and meet with CDSS and talk about a strategy for how can we get engaged earlier, how can we get the numbers earlier. They are effective 7/1, yet final policy that came out. It is paid in arrears, so we have a little bit of room, but I think it would be a good opportunity to see where can we, you know, look at the process holistically and see if there's an opportunity to get numbers earlier.
Thank you.
Yep. Second priority that came up since we talked 2 weeks ago, we have been meeting with DHCS. There was a change, a policy effective coming out 7/1 regarding the CHDP and referrals. The good news with that change is there's going to be a few less activities the counties need to do. An ACWDL did go out to the counties, I think 2409 perhaps, to let them know about the changes and that those referrals no longer need to be sent by the counties. We also, I believe a Meadle is coming out today to provide additional guidance, and we will be sending out a CIT from the project about some of the system changes. And we're putting these changes in phases. In August, there are some correspondence that we're removing from the system, some questions that the counties no longer need to complete in data collection and turning off the interface. There will be subsequent changes because there are more forms that will be revised, and as DHCS releases those, we will be going forward and making those changes. The third priority that came up this week, and there's more than 3, but I just want to give you the highlights, is as we know, our firefighters are very busy this state already. We did receive from CDSS a request for data that is going to support a mass replacement for our CalFresh households. The first request, and I'll say first because I anticipate more, is for 8 counties and within those 8 counties, about 24 zip codes. So we're running the data to pull the impacted population that is known to CalSource. We provide that back. CDSS will go through the process to review and get FNS approval, and then we'll run that batch process to replace a portion of the July CalFresh household benefits as directed by the states and FNS on that. So just wanted to give you a highlight. It does include a number of counties north of Sacramento, I think San Mateo, Santa Barbara on the list as well. But we will be sending out an update as we get more information and as that moves forward. So I know it's one of those items we are very time sensitive with, just to make sure that those folks that are impacted and displaced and evacuated through the fires get that replacement benefit as soon as possible. Next slide. Where we're at today for our July release, creeping up there, we're actually a little over 99% complete. We just have a few remaining items we're closing out. QA and county, QA test county validation are complete. From a release communication standpoint, this week we did have the county webcast for 2407. Well attended again. This webcast, we've started to incorporate the feedback from your staff through the discovery sessions we had. So there was some restructuring of how the webcast was facilitated, such that if you're a CalFresh worker and I was interested in these 3 things, they're all grouped together so you can come on and off and not sit through the entire presentation. There's a lot of recordings that were made available as well for individual SCRs. We typically demonstrate over 20 items from the release. So again, making incremental progress there to make these sessions more informative and engaging and for your staff. So next, as we head into next week, we have the very important green light on Wednesday. Assuming green, then that Sunday we will start co-deployment activities, do our smoke testing validation in readiness for go live, and the daily calls will be held those first 3 days of the release to discuss any escalated items from the counties. That's where we're at. Thank you, Mike.
All right. Thank you very much, Lisa. Very thorough update. Any questions or comments from our board members or state partners? Okay, hearing none. Any public comment? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Lisa. Really appreciate the attention to such a time-sensitive matter. It comes up every year, multiple times a year. It's incredibly important that we continue to have that kind of vigilance around this. So thank you. I really appreciate the effort and attention. So we'll go ahead and move on to our next item. I believe we have reports coming up. All right.
So we took a short little abbreviated version of this week, so you won't see me go through all the updates and all the action items that we've been working on. This first slide is where I'll keep kind of harkening back to all the updates we've made since the last time we met. Unfortunately, it's only been 3 weeks since the last time we met, and it's the 3 weeks right at the end of our bi-monthly cycle, so it's difficult to get priority releases in that window as we're going through the green light process. With that said, you will still see a volume of stuff has gone in, particularly, again, focus on our fiscal reports, which I'll go a little bit more into there. I did want to highlight a couple of things there. On the right under fiscal reports, our consolidation is coming. This was one of the biggest requests that came out of all of our research. This is where you will no longer have to open roughly 100 reports to be able to produce your claim. So that's a huge gain for the counties and a lot of the good feedback we've gotten from the Cowan group. As well as our next delivery group of functional design documents that we continue to get positive feedback on. There's an additional 7 of those coming out at the end of July as well. We go to the next slide. What we had heard at the last JPA meeting was some questions and concerns around fiscal reporting. So I've been working with the consortium analysts, trying to reach out to some counties. I know some of the RMs are still reaching out. We're still trying to gather and put our hands around exactly everything that's out there. What I've done while that's happening is I did a look back going to the beginning of May through the end of this month. And I tried to separate these into 3 different categories. The first being true defects, things that we found are broken in the reports that need to be corrected. The second middle category are enhancements that we're working on. These are where we've decided to either make changes, introduce something new, modify logic, and we've been going through the SCR process. And then the last is upstream issues, because there have been some things that have been happening upstream of reports that demonstrate themselves or become evident through the reports, which sometimes is a very positive thing. That means the report did exactly what it was supposed to do. It was supposed to find something that happened upstream. Focusing on the defects, we have seen a fairly concentrated amount around the DFA 256. This is your state claim for CalFresh expenditures. It is also in the process of being rewritten and redesigned to a new version of the report called the CF 256. We haven't had that stop us from making corrections. We're still working on both cleaning up the 256 and then making sure the CF 256 when it comes out is accurate. We are also seeing some smaller issues here and there with a single issuance or one issuance here and there, or one valuable here and there not showing up. And so we're finding various dating scenarios or things like that that we're correcting as we go through this. The main things I pulled out at the top are all things that we've seen the most tickets on, the most conversation, and I tried to align all the correction dates on there for you as well. We also have 20 other defects that have been deployed through the course of this window of 5/1 through 7/31. This will only leave us 2 remaining open fiscal defects as of the time I wrote these slides. By the way, those are also scheduled for the next day, August 1st. I was going to extend it by 1 more day, but I chose to just leave that out there. On the enhancement side, we are still seeing, there was some policy change around how SCIM was issued, where the EBT benefit type that is associated to changed. And so we did run into some reports we had to modify to be able to accurately report those. Those we put at the end of May. And for this issue, I'm going to skip over to the upstream issue as well. What we had found through our reports was that there were some errors in how that new EBT benefit type was implemented. That became evident through the reports where, hey, this is not coming in the right EBT benefit type. So that actually caused us to go upstream. The report's right, the report's doing what it's supposed to be doing, upstream, the fiscal logic needed to be modified so it could flow into the reports correctly. So in this case, while it's an error, the reports functioned correctly. They caught an error. The counties were able to identify it, bring it to us, and we corrected it on the 5th of June. Going back to enhancements, the CA 812, there's a series of updates going in there. That is your collections report around CalWorks or cash expenditures. That was a new policy item, implemented a new structure and logic for that report. And I've already talked about the consolidated item there. Also focusing towards the bottom under the purple line, we have an additional 6 enhancements going in between now and the end of this month. They're all tied to the baseline release that Lisa was speaking about. We went through the rest of the open prioritized backlog by the reports committee, and there's only 2 more remaining items. We have those scheduled in the 2505 release. Focusing on the last column, upstream issues, I've already spoken about the first one. I did want to bring up that we do continuously seem to have a small stream of county file issues. This is where we exchange files nightly, predominantly for fiscal purposes. We had 10 different instances of late files that caused us to have to rerun 46 different reports. So this often comes through as a defect saying, hey, my report's empty or my report's missing stuff. We look into it, we work with our batch operations team and they go, yeah, we're working with the county to rerun that report once we get the corrected file brought in. So I just wanted to bring that in here too, that sometimes it appears as a reports issue, but it's an upstream related to the nightly process. Those do generally get resolved within about 24 hours. Is there anything else? Mike?
He's looking at us.
Does that conclude your presentation?
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Okay, I know reports is a hot topic for everyone, so I just want to open up if anybody has any comments or questions here for Sean, for the board members or state partners. Okay, as usual, it's not limited to the meeting when you want to forward any comments or questions, but I want to make sure that we're making progress. I want to make sure that your issues are being resolved and that we're prioritizing what's most important to you. So please make sure that you guys dive in and find out if those are the case, and if not, to voice those and make sure the project has that. You can let me know, you can let Julia know, or you can speak up in the meeting. So that way we're having our resources in the right direction on your behalf. Okay. Any public comment? Okay, not hearing any, then we'll go ahead and move on. Thank you very much, Sean.
All right, so we shared in the last board meeting that we were getting ready to deploy the Fresno Gen AI, the summary call assist. And so Regina is going to provide an update on where we're at.
Awesome. Thank you, Julia. So yes, last time we were on the morning of our first phase 1 deployment for Fresno Gen AI. We're very happy to report that that went well. We successfully deployed to all the CalWorks and GR queues on the evening of June 27th. So here I wanted to share just some quick data points from those first couple days after our phase 1 go live. So in those first 2 days, the Friday and Monday, we had over 1,000 summaries generated. 100% of those did generate summaries within 60 seconds. So that's great, with the average summary generation time being about 8 seconds. So from a performance perspective, it's looking like this tool is working great. We had some eligibility worker feedback from the first couple days that folks were seeing that there was, a great organization of the notes in the phone call. That, someone's had no suggestions, which we love to hear, but of course we did have some positives and negatives as we're still, in the early phases of seeing this tool being rolled out. We did get a couple suggestions that some people thought the summaries could be repetitive for longer calls, and conversely for some of the shorter calls, maybe lacked a couple details, and some small items such as captured numbers, names, and addresses. So we've been working with Fresno on making sure some of those tweaks with the Gen AI prompt are getting reviewed and addressed as needed. And we had some key performance metrics from the first couple days. We're already seeing a reduction in post-call wrap time on inbound calls and outbound calls. I think this is just a small sample size since it was those first couple days. So as we get additional data points and continue to review those metrics, we'll have a better sense of what these trends are looking like. And we'll be working with Fresno to see if there's any insights behind these, especially any discrepancies between the inbound and outbound wrap times here. So just a quick preview, since this is data from a little while ago when we had to submit the slides. As of Monday, we had over 2,600 summaries that were generated, averaging around 7 seconds, so even a little bit faster than what we saw these first couple days. And our exciting update is that tonight we are actually going live with phase 2. So that's Medi-Cal and CalFreshQ. So those will be live Monday morning. We'll start seeing those summaries being generated as well. And that represents a large portion of the overall Fresno calls here. And then our phase 3 will be the remaining queues. That's going to be on July 18th, so next week. And after that, I think we're looking to stabilize, make sure everything's looking great for Fresno. And then I know last time at JPA here we talked about equity being a big key important issue and wanting to make sure we're looking at scaling to different languages, things like that. So we're already starting to have some conversations around technical feasibility, and understanding what that might look like. So yeah, that's our update for Fresno Gen AI. Very exciting time, and we're excited for our phase 2 go live tonight. Thank you.
And I know one of the, thank you, Regina. And I think one of the things that's not here yet, but we will be adding as a metric is the amount of effort and editing and rework that the actual worker has to do to change things after the summary is put in. Is that true or not true?
Yes, we will be doing that. And I think we'll work closely with the county with that.
Right. Because I already see where they're capturing some things, just wanting to make sure we're measuring that as well.
Any other comments or questions from our board members, state partners? We had a lot of dialogue on this last meeting, and it's really great to see counties getting deep into innovation like this, and really happy that Fresno has went out there, got out in front for us. Any other comments or questions from our board member, state partners?
Michael, this is James with Seminary. Real quick, and appreciate the update, Regina, and super excited for Fresno, and really excited to see how we can support our customers and our staff in this space. But my question would be in regards to the summaries themselves, if we're able to kind of map out if the talk time was 5 minutes or like a range of 5 to 7 minutes, how long is a summary itself? Like how many characters is a summary providing? So I don't know if we're able to do that, but I've always been curious, depending again on the talk time, how long that summary is going to be that the staff then need to go in there and review. And Julia, thank you for highlighting the need to really be have a great understanding of how long is staff going in there and editing the summary, because that's another critical part. If the summary is 70-75% accurate, then what is that equating to for the staff to be able to go in there and have to update, make changes, edits? So again, just real quick, if we're able to track the number of characters or how long that summary is based on the talk time.
Yeah, no, great question. I think that was a big question and topic of discussion throughout the design process with Fresno. And I think what the team had landed on was somewhere around 350 characters being like the upper limit of those summaries. So that's, what we're looking at. And again, it depends on if the calls, sometimes they're quite short and the summaries just don't need to be that long because there's not that much detail. But yeah, 350 would be the upper limit there.
Awesome. Thank you, Regina. I appreciate it. Thank you, Michael.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from our board members or state partners? All right, really looking forward
actually,
to
Michael, I have a question.
Yes, Kristen.
Oh, hi.
I know the voice.
Yeah, I would imagine you do. I have a question about kind of the reporting functionality on this part of it. Does it have the capability to group the types of calls that were received? Is there any management components associated with it that you can kind of like group the calls or anything in that realm?
Sorry, I'm not sure I totally understood the question. Grouping the calls to see, could you repeat the question, please?
Probably because it's not super clear. Sorry about that. I'm just trying to get to see if there's any sort of any sort of like summarizing for the management perspective, something that tells us of the calls received today, this is the types of calls that needed to be edited, or whether it be of the calls received today, we had this many for this types of functionality, this type, or for this type of need, breaking it out. And then the third thing that kind of comes to mind is even like overall summaries about tone, and there were these types of that could be made to improve customer service. I remember hearing a little bit about that at the CalSAWS meeting we had last year. So I'm just asking about like overall summaries from a management perspective, if there, any of that exists.
Kristen, but targeted around gleaning from this case notes component, what can be gleaned out of that?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, so to answer part of it, what type, they go into specific queues. So we already have that information, absolutely. So the Gen AI itself is, if I can kind of bifurcate the conversation, there's a Gen AI, which is just the summary, the call assist, but you're talking about actually the log itself and what's put into the call summary, right? I guess I'm trying to make sure that
yeah, and this might the answer might be as simple as these two things are not related.
Right, I think that might be that.
Okay.
Well, I think they're blended, right? I think some of the questions that you were asking were, you know, in terms of like about tone, you know, there's a lot, you know, we're working, you bring up a good point. We're talking to even SEIU, right, about, you know, some of these, you know, these things as well. Questions about tone and sentiment and all those things are really complex pieces, because you start wrapping in kind of equity and you know, certain demographics and how they communicate and things like that. So we want to, I guess the whole point of this is we want to walk into this very intentionally and make sure that it's accomplishing what we intended to, and not create, you know, any additional problems by it. Because I think at the end of the day, the North Star is, are we actually helping our, you know, our call center, you know, our call centers do this work more efficiently and wrap up these calls faster so they can move on to the next call. And then there's another part of it, 2.0, which I think a lot is, you know, captured in what you're talking about, and how we can get more granular with the data that comes out of that. And I think that's legitimate, but I would say the answer is, are we doing that right now? Not yet, because there's some other pieces that we need to get in place first. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And I think Kristen's ideas popping up like that is all a part of this, the idea of the potential as well. But we do have to be, I like your point, we do have to be very mindful and also deliberate and intentional about what we do. And also anything that brushes up against labor, really thinking through those components. So we really want this stuff to work as an assistive tool. We want to make sure we're really looking at it from all angles. So thank you for your input, Kristen. Very valuable, and thanks for the responses from the project as well. Any other comments or questions from our board members or our state partners? Okay, hearing none. Any public comment? Okay, hearing none. We're going to move into M&E risks, which we already kind of redesigned the the presentation on this to be more streamlined as well.
Right, so if we take a look at our overall exposure trend, we're steady from last month to this month at roughly 1.09. It does represent a decrease from earlier in the year. We do have 15 open risks and issues. We are just going to double click into the medium risks and then the single issue that we have on the next slide. So if you can move on, and I will ask my friends to join me as we go through this, and I'll have Holly do risk 102 right now.
Thanks, Arnold. So this is our ongoing risk related to the budget. We do continue to track, monitor, mitigate through close collaboration with our state partners, specifically on a few items that need to be addressed through the November fall budget process, including the Benefits Cal parity funding. And we've made good progress there and working through that. We did get the fall process was initiated actually yesterday. Feels early, but it was initiated yesterday. We got our first request from OTSI. So we are off and running, working through that towards getting to January.
Thank you, Holly. And then if I could ask Peggy on 203 on project communications. Peggy, are you on mute by chance?
Sorry, I had trouble getting off mute.
There we go.
Yeah, so we continue to monitor our efforts under this category. I'm happy to report that we just concluded our last governance roadshow yesterday. All went well. We are now getting ready to transition to a hot topic way of providing information to the county. So we're starting that effort. Our strike teams are for both the communications on the CIs as well as our web portal. They are getting a pause on that and effort to regroup and see where we need to move forward on that. So this is an ongoing effort. We'll continue to monitor and look for ways to enhance communication and make sure that we are providing the best information we can to support our counties. Back to you, Michael.
Thank you, Peggy. And then Lynn, if I could have you cover 246 and 290.
Yes, hello again. Yes, this one is for the perceived gap in functionality with Get CalFresh that may impact the adoption of Benefits Cal. As mentioned before, we're definitely still continuing to work on those pieces, and we've been working with CDSS and Code for America on some of the last pieces on there and working on a priority and a semblance and a sequence on continuing to add components to Benefits Cal. So we're definitely working through and on that. It looks like that we'll be able to work on it and are addressing all the funding needs at this point. And then of course the follow-up as requested earlier with the earlier discussion, we'll look in that too, and it'll probably add an update to this at a later point. So I move on to the ROI. Of course, I just provided an update just a short time ago on that piece. We'll continue to update this accordingly. And I anticipate once we establish some more milestones on this, that will help this. And this may actually start trending a little bit different in the next few months.
All right, thank you, Lynn. And then Sean, if you could cover 296 and 297.
For 296, this is focused on the state report side of things. We did introduce a new report that, just like I mentioned earlier, the CF 256 replacing the DFA 256. I also mentioned the new 7 FTDs that are targeted for the end of this month. We also held our targeted session or our deep dives where we go into a report in great detail. We did that on the CF 237. That is the, did I say CF? CA 237 foster care. Sorry, all the letters got mixed up. On June 27th, this is our caseloader statistical movement report for foster care. Going to the next item, which is on the management reports, we also had a targeted session there, both on the expedited CalFresh report, as well as the application processing dashboard inside of Click. And for here, Jarek and his team also were able to do a series of webinars, and the CIT was sent out 88-24, where they took not just a focus on the report itself, but how you process that report. And there was close to 800 people between those two calls. So it was widely attended. There was lots of good questions in there. And it was again, taking more of a focus on not the report itself, but how do you use that report? How do you process off of that? So I think that was a really good exercise to go through with the counties.
Thank you, Sean. That brings us to our issue 300, and this was around the ping identity or ForgeRock services and the stability. So happy to report out that we have had a month of stability in the ForgeRock space. And during that time, we've also made progress on identifying the true root cause of what caused the original instability. We've been able to reproduce it in our lower environments, and we have made some configuration changes that are currently in the lower environments being tested and performance tested prior to scheduling the migration into the production environments in the next couple of weeks. So that is the short-term fix on there. And then, as I talked about before, longer term fixes, there are some additional releases or a new release of Ping Identity has yet to go to general release, but that will be part of the roadmap, and we'll be able to make some additional adjustments to the architecture to improve resiliency of the Ping Identity and ForgeRock Identity services. And then that brings us to our final risk, which is 302, around there could be customer dissatisfaction and county frustration unless courtesy callback configuration and e-game reporting is approved. The project is on track for the LA implementation of the modification of the courtesy callback to have the card or the recipient on the line first before the agent. It's on track for September. And then we are continuing to work with eGain on any outstanding reporting issues and are reducing the list of backlog on those as well. So work is progressing to reduce the risk on both of those items. So with that, Michael, I'll return it back to you for questions.
Okay. On the call center ones we talked about, you just talked at the end, we're really anxious on that. So hopefully have a really good testing process for that, because it's going to be, it's going to be real-time impact. So I just want to remind us to make sure we have a
model
good testing. We're willing to be part of it, so we want to make sure that we're in it. Okay. There was a lot of different updates on these, so I wanted to go ahead and open it up to our board member state partners on any questions or comments you had on any one of them. Okay, hearing none. Any public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move forward. Thank you to all that updated on those.
All right, procurement, Tom.
Thank you. And we will do first the M&O procurement. As you know, an appeal was filed by Accenture on February 15th. Today's a very important day. We'll have letter briefs from both Accenture and the consortium exchanged. The hearing for the appeals review panel is scheduled for August 30th with a decision anytime before or on September 19th. So it's moving along. We're putting the final touches on the brief from the consortium side right now. Next is the update on our benefits calc key procurement tasks. Everything is on schedule. We've got evaluators scheduled for orientation and have good participation from all sides of the consortium, state, county, and consortium folks. That's it, Michael. Back to you.
All right. So any comments or questions from our board member state partners on that procurement update? A lot happened. Any public comment? Okay, hearing none. I do want to give kudos to the team of many who are all participating in our procurements, and the efforts have county representatives that were out there soliciting and pulling, and really, if you are providing some of the evaluators for these things, realize they play an incredibly important role, because once we have these all done, there's always a reflection back. Oh, well, how much participation was in the evaluation team? I just want to encourage you that if you do have the opportunity to make sure when we do these, that we actually get some of your best folks that really can contribute to them. It's a time commitment, I know, but it's an investment that'll pay off for years ahead. So thanks to those of you who have your staff lend it out for that. I know we have some in LA. And then I wanted to let you guys know the next meeting is going to be on August 16th. That's a Friday. It's going to be another morning meeting at 9. So please mark your calendars. Any other comments, Julie?
No.
All right.
We made it early.
All right, I didn't jinx us after all. All right, well then we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you everyone for your participation and having a robust meeting. Enjoy the rest of your Friday.
Thank you.